is the company we hired to help us with the bond, and Piper Jeffrey is our bond company. So if we don't answer all the questions as we go through this tonight, write them down. We'll have a question and answer session towards the end. This is an actual board meeting, and there will be conversation through the crowd to the board members and back. I ask that everybody keep that as respectful as possible. There are going to be differing opinions. There's going to be different ideas of how to approach this issue, and most likely none of us are wrong. So let's keep an open mind and be respectful to everybody else's opinion and give them an opportunity to speak. So start off by introducing the board members that are here tonight. I am Justin Frank. I'm the president of the board. I've been on the board for three years. I am a 2001 graduate of Wabaunsee High School. Born and raised in the area, in case some of you don't know me. But I have 3 kids. I have a kindergartner who goes to school in Maple Hill. I have a 4th grader that goes to school here in Alma, and I have an 8th grader that goes to school in Paxton.
I am Tony Conrad. I am a graduate in 1993 of Wabaunsee High School. I've also been on the board for 3 years. I've also got 3 kids in the district. One that's 2nd grader at Maple Hill, one that's junior high in Paxico, and one that is a junior here at the high school.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Oliver, and Tony, we graduated the same. I'm sorry, could you not hear me?
Speak louder.
Okay, yes. Hello, I'm Kelly Oliver. I am also a 93 graduate of Wabaunsee High School. I grew up in Alma, but for my adult life, I have lived in Maple Hill. And also have 3 children, 2 of which are in high school, and I also have a graduate of high school. And as far as, let's see, what else did we think about? I've been on the board for 9 years, and as a profession, I work for the Kansas Board of Regents office, so education is part of not only what I'm personally passionate about, but also as part of my job.
Hello, my name is Jim Buffett, and I was just west of town. I grew up in Paxico. We have 2 kids. Myself and my family went through Wabaunsee High School. We moved back to the area about 3 years ago, and I'm in the at-large position, and I started in January of this year.
Okay, so the reason we're all here tonight, the district is facing a financial situation that has been brewing over the last 10 years. I've started these meetings by explaining kind of where we're going, the roadmap for this meeting, where the district has been, where we're at today, and where we're headed in the future. Those 3 things are what we're going to cover tonight. So where we've been, we passed a bond 19 years ago, built the facility that you're sitting in right now, did some additions down the hallway, did some additions at Paxico, did some additions at Maple Hill. Those additions are libraries and computer laboratories, this gym, and all HVAC units, because that's going to be a part that we cover here tonight. I know everybody saw that in the paper and been reading stuff about that. So 19 years ago, everything was brand new and refreshed across our district. For 10 years, that budget worked just fine. Everybody, we actually had lower mill levies for our local option budget than we'd ever had, and still were able to run a positive budget. As most of you can probably understand, We ran a positive budget in the beginning because things are new. And our funding from the state was extremely high. In 2008, when we hit the recession, those numbers from the state started to drop. And at that time, our facilities were 8, 9, 10 years older, the HVAC units. The newness was starting to wear off. It is a commercial facility, so this is a little different than when you're thinking about your home where there's 2 of you there, or there's 2 of you and 2 or 3, 4 or 5 kids running in and out of there. As some of you may know, when you're freshly married or living by yourself, the wear and tear on your house is quite different than if you have 3 or 4 kids running through there. Imagine that for a commercial facility that has 400 kids running through there. There is wear and tear, okay? So, as time went on, our expenses rose and our income went down. For the first 10 years after our last bond, and that's all the further back in budget-wise that I'm going to go, because that's the only further back I've ever researched. But to that point, we put a lot of money into our quote-unquote savings account. A lot of school districts around, they are building, they're putting turf on their fields. That's a big one. They're building a pre-K facility. They are building these things out of cash reserves. We were doing the same thing. We were putting money back into our cash reserves in order to be utilized at a future date, where we are today. We did not, however, and nor did anyone in the state, foresee the amount of budget drop coming in per pupil that we saw from the state funding. So, you're newlyweds again. You go out, you buy a house based upon your budget. Say, this is what we can afford to buy. This is how we can make this work. I can put this much money towards our house payment. I can put this much money towards insurance, repairs, maintenance, and so on. Everything is fine. One day you come home, ready for supper, your spouse comes home and says, I lost my job today. It's okay. We've got savings. We have the ability to manage through this. You'll get a new job, get your resume up to date, and submit that resume out. That went on for a couple of years. It's okay, I had money saved back. We were going to put new windows in. We was going to put a new air conditioner in. We were going to replace the carpet. But that stuff doesn't have to be done in order to function. What has to be done is we have to keep the lights on. We have to pay the propane bill. We have to make sure kids have shoes on their feet and food to eat. Those are the must-haves. The school district, we have to pay wages. We have to keep the lights on. We have to run buses. We have to pay gas. Those things are more important than making sure that our HVAC is on the right rotational schedule. Those things are more important than making sure that the fascia on the side of our buildings is painted and held up nice and tight. It's more important to make sure our wages are paid. So, 3 or 4 years down the road, that savings is gone. As a couple, what do? Do you borrow money on a credit card? Do you borrow money in equity on a house note? What's your next step? Well, we're out. That's where we're at. That's where we are today. So where have we been? Budget income was great for 10 years. Last 10 years, not so good. And we took out of our savings to pay the light bill. Okay? So that's where we're at today. That savings is gone. What's your next step? That's what the board was faced with 2.5 years ago. It sounds like a surprise that this is a rush program and this is just getting out in front of everybody. I can sympathize with some of that. But the board, if you are actively involved with what is going on with your local school district, you at least read the minutes. They're published every month in the paper. They're published every month on Facebook, Twitter, our website. They are there for you to read, to stay involved, and be a part of what we've got going on. Bad things happen, you email your board member. Hey, I don't know if I like this, or I don't understand this, or I don't see where you're headed with this. Can you help me understand? So 2.5 years ago, remember I've been on the board for 3 years, so 2.5 years ago, 6 months in, we started having this conversation. We can no longer afford to operate the way we're operating. We have to have some cash balances to survive any other downturn in the economy. We are unwilling to spend those cash balances down any further. How are we going to make our facilities more efficient? How are we going to make our district more efficient? And stop taking money out of the classroom to put towards facilities maintenance. So the board discussed options. We discussed outsourcing. As some of you probably seen, at the very latest board meeting, we discussed and approved outsourcing of our custodial staff at a savings to the district of about $24,000 a year. And also a guarantee that positions that we have trouble keeping staffed are staffed with highly trained professionals to make sure it is done correctly. At a savings to your taxpayers. Part of what we're trying to do to keep the lights on. We've also paid for an energy audit. They came out and assessed everything, all the way from the lights to our heating equipment, to all the HVAC stuff, fans, personal heaters that teachers have in there under their desk because it's cold in the wintertime. All that stuff has been assessed. They are coming back with a program that will save us money, whether we pass it on or not. We also discussed outsourcing our transportation. That was not financially feasible. It wasn't even close, so we didn't even continue talking about it. We didn't want to outsource something that was going to cost us more money. If we are cheaper in-house, we just shouldn't do it that way. We don't have the added luxury to say it's better to outsource even though it costs more money. We don't have that luxury to have that decision. So we said no to that. What we're trying to do is keep a very competitive environment for our teachers, financially. We, compared to local districts, 2 years ago, our starting wages for our school bus drivers was $10 an hour. We couldn't get bus drivers. We continually get complaints, though, that the bus routes are longer, that they're less efficient, and it comes down to the fact that we don't have enough people to drive them. I can't argue with them. I don't set the wages, but I don't know a lot of people that work for $10 an hour anymore. Since then, we brought that up to $14.50. It's quite the pay raise. $4.50 an hour, that's huge for us. It's still $2 under the market, but it's a lot better than where we were. And the market is compared to Mission Valley. That's our market. We compared to them, we compared to Wamego, other Mid-East League schools. We were the lowest paid school in the Mid-East League. That also transfers to our custodial staffing. Hence why we have trouble keeping people in those positions. We keep them through the most expensive time, which is a training portion of that, and then they leave for better income someplace else. It happened every meeting. I'm not going to over-exaggerate. Most of the meetings that I come to, there is always somebody on the list that is resigned because they're moving to a different district. That's not the district that I want us to represent. We've also done a major pay increase for our teachers. About 7 years ago, we had a large funding decrease, yet we were way below the salary schedule to competing schools, and we did a large salary increase for our teachers. I am very proud to say that you represent one of the best average paying teacher salary school districts in the Mid-East League. We are paying our teachers very well, but they deserve it. They need it. It costs a lot to live today. It costs a lot to operate a facility like this. So as we go through and we look at all those issues, and we look at our competing schools around us, we are the only school district locally that has 5 facilities spread across 3 towns. That is where we started. Do we need the facilities? If we do, why? If we don't, what's it take to get rid of it? So as we start going through that, we find out that we have 100,000 extra square foot versus a school district our size with the number of kids we have. 100,000 extra square feet. As we go through and look at all of our hard costs and what it costs to keep those up, that number comes to just under $2 per square foot. $1.89, $1.85, $1.95, a few pennies here or there. I don't think we can argue about pennies. Take $1.85 times 100,000. That's $185,000 that we are spending maintaining extra square feet in our district versus other districts our size. $200K. My question is why? That was our question at the board. Why are we doing that? And you might think, well, aren't you occupying those square footages? And the answer is no. We have, at the last bond, we brought in some modulars. They were 20 years old when we brought them in then, and they were temporary structures. Here we are 20 years later, and we're still utilizing them. Up until last winter, there was one in Paxco being utilized, but it had black mold growing on the inside, and we decided not to fix it. The remediation of the mold was going to be too expensive, more than what it was worth, and we have bigger fish to fry. We were having this conversation. We're not going to spend the amount of money it takes to do that. But it brings it up ever present to you guys. That's why it's important that we have this discussion. And why it's important for us to follow along with our local newspaper and our local school district's actions every month. What's going on, so that way you can help be more informed and more involved, and this doesn't come as a surprise. Because we have been talking about it for 2.5 years. So, we say, next step, maybe we ought to look at consolidation. We're too far spread out. We need to be under less square footage. What's everybody's ideas? And through the board, there were 26, again, probably a misquote. I know there was more than 20 ideas put on paper, all the way from go in the middle of a pasture and rebuild all athletic facilities, a K through 12, complete from the ground up, start over. 59 million, 54 million. Okay. 54 million, start from scratch. All the way down to let's just fix our HVAC. Let's just borrow enough money from the taxpayers to band-aid it. What would it take to put all new HVAC in? Let's fix what we can at Maple Hill, Paxco, and Alma. $8 million. Right? $8 million. So pretty wide range. 54 million down to 8 million. So then as a set of board, we discuss what makes sense. We're coming off of a bond. Is it right to come off of a bond like over the last 20 years and ask taxpayers for $8 more million to reset the clock? Again, your facilities are another 20 years older. You're sitting in the new gym. Everybody calls this the new gym. It's 20 years old. That means the stuff that was 80 years old when we fixed it 20 years ago is now 100. How much money should we spend on an 80, 90, or 100-year-old building? So that brought us to the question, what is a school district's objective? What are we here for? It is to teach kids. It isn't for building preservation. It isn't for historical monuments. It is for teaching kids. We teach history, It comes in the form of books and pictures and training. It doesn't come from walk me through the 3 stories at the high school. That's not the history that we teach. And it is not the school district's responsibility to spend tax dollars that are yours on that facility, unless you say different. So we looked at that option. Because we're not, as a board of directors, we're not here to tear down buildings. It's the last thing I want to do. I went to high school in that building. I played sports in the Paxco building. I don't want to see them leave. It is a beautiful building. So HDK, I know you say it's too much money, but that's in the eye of the beholder. You need to tell us what it's going to cost. $11 million to fix your high school. But the caveat is, if you spend $11 million on that facility, you have a smaller square footage, because what we have to do to come in and make the rooms ADA accessible, what we have to do to tear out the steps because they're too steep, what we have to do to fix your water leaks, what we have to do to fix limestone that's been buried in the ground for 89 years, we can't guarantee anything. We start digging out along the edge of that foundation and something happens, the chimney's already leaning away from the building, so we know that there are foundational issues there. What happens if there is a major issue in that construction? We're already committed. $11 million, fine. Okay, well, what's it take to build a new high school? 8. Okay. So we can have new stuff, cheaper than what we can fix the old, and have the space that is more conducive to our learning environment today. So that comes down to your perception of what it costs to do that. Right? Your perception is, man, he's throwing out millions of dollars here, millions of dollars there. What are construction prices today? I just built a new house. It cost me $140 a square foot. Did you have an elevator? Did you do ADA accessible ramps? Those types of questions come in when it comes to commercial property. So we asked around. We did a little price checking on HDK. In fact, there's a local builder in the stands today that said, I think you're legit. We do these a lot. HDK came to us through a recommendation from Kansas Association of School Boards. We called them, said, hey, we're looking for a reputable firm to help us out with this project. They gave us a list, we interviewed the list, and we came up with HDK. What we felt as a good crew to represent our school district, mainly because they do some, I hate to dub them as a smaller school district company because they'll do huge projects, but rural. They're good at their rural schools, which is what we are. So that's who we chose. Some of that comes with trust from the people that you guys put in these seats. It comes down to a little bit of trust. What is in it for our board? What personal agenda would our board have by throwing a bogus bond at you guys? Are we exempt from paying that bond? The costs associated with it, the tax dollars that are going to be charged? Well, I can tell you, I'm a local business owner. I own cattle, and I own land, and I own a house. All 4 of those sections are on the tax roll. So what's in it for me personally to do something bogus with my dollars? Doesn't make sense. There's no personal agenda going on here in these seats. There is only focus on what is best for our kids, because we come back to what is our mission. Our mission is to take care of kids. Our mission is to set our kids up for the most opportunity-driven future that they can have. Okay? That's what our board is designed to do. So that's what we said, fine. We put 12 plans together that included the $8 million plan to just patch it together. It included the $54 million plan and everything else in between. We said what we're going to do, each board member come up with 2 members out of their area that they represent. That's 14 people. We'll put administration on that, and we'll put our superintendent on that. And we had 21 people total for our building committee. We said, here's 12 plans. You guys go have meetings about it, discuss it. They had meetings in Maple Hill, they had a meeting in Paxico, and they discussed it among themselves. And they came up with probably what you guys have heard, option 11. They like a K-12 in Paxico, and they like a 7 through 12 in Alma. Or K-6 in Paxico, and a 7 through 12 in Alma. The program that was listed, though, had no improvements, only remodels. Correct? They didn't. Oh, the Paxico was the same, and here was new. Okay. But the high school wasn't. Right. So, and that was can you remember that number? Okay. It was 16 to 18 million.
Like 15 and a half, doesn't it?
16 and a half?
15 and a half.
Okay. So we said our oldest, our worst shaped building is the high school. What do we do with that facility? Because this bond, the program that they chose, only allotted $4.5 million to the high school. And the architects came back and said, look, once you spend $4.5 million on that building, you're going to be forced to come up to code. And to come up to code, it's going to take the rest of your dollars. You're not going to get your K-6 in Paxico, because we're going to use the majority of those funds to just fix your high school. Well, what's that mean? What do you got to fix? Okay, we got to tear out the steps going in. It was a bi-level entry school, so you come in, you go down, or you go up. That's no longer acceptable to the state's eyes. And rules that we don't make. Our legislatures make those rules, we just have to follow them. So the steps are too narrow and they're too steep. You got to tear them out, level them out. The doorways are too narrow. You got to tear them out. That building, obviously, as you probably know, is an extremely rigid building. The interior walls are rigid. They're load-bearing walls. They don't move very well. They're rock, so they don't move. So you're stuck with the room sizes. You're stuck with the number of rooms. You're stuck with the room locations. There's no flexibility in that. The foundation, as you've seen some pictures, and you're welcome to schedule a walkthrough, and we can walk you through this. But as some of you know that probably own old limestone buildings at your house, as that rock gets permeated with water, it turns to powder. So that's where we're at in high school. It is completely powder. It's wet and damp all the time. You can't get the water away from it. And when you do, the rock is soft now. The structural integrity of the limestone is gone. It's been in the ground for over 80 years. It's done its purpose. And while we're on that subject, that building was built in the 30s. Imagine the undertaking it took to build that facility in the 30s. Go back a little bit and think about the hard work that it took for them guys to chip away and build that building. It's astonishing. It's amazing that they were able to do it. One. And two, it was a financial burden to the taxpayers at that time. What was going on in the 30s? One of our largest economic meltdowns across the country. Yet they built a brand new high school. That boggles my mind. For one, that they even had the ability to do it. Let alone, the taxpayers looked at their future and said, if we don't invest in a high school, our town is not going to be worth anything. We're going to invest in our kids, we're going to invest in our future, and we're going to build a high school right here. It's going to be a beautiful facility, and it'll last forever. So that's one of my questions to you guys. What does forever mean? How long are they supposed to last? It lasted forever for the people that built it in the 30s. They're no longer around to have this discussion. What does forever mean for this bond? So if this K through 6 in Paxico and a 7 through 12 in Alma with new facilities lasts 40 years, is that forever for some of us? Is that forever for the bulk of us? Who knows what happens in 40 years? That puts me at 77, and my family history tells me I ain't going to see that anyways. So that's pretty much forever for me. Nothing lasts forever. When they use the words, that is a forever fix, it is forever for their lifetime. This decision, as the board has looked at, fixes our income issue. It fixes our expense on old buildings. It fixes our 5 buildings down to 2. It fixes our collaboration issues within young school teaching environments. Yes, we got cell phones. Yes, we have email. It is not the same as meeting face-to-face with your counterpart and having a discussion as to what you're doing with a troubling kid, with what you're doing with a subject that you need a little help with. How are you teaching this to your 3rd graders? How am I teaching this to my 3rd graders? Right now our kids go K through 4, Maple Hill and Alma. They get to 5th grade, they move to Paxico. Ask your 5th grade teachers how long it takes to get your 4th graders that are now 5th graders from Maple Hill and from Alma on the same page. If it's 1 week, it's a week that's wasted. That could be spent furthering their education, preparing them for the next step, but we're spending it getting them on the same page. Feel free, I'm not misquoting. Ask your 5th grade teachers this. If they're together, they have the ability to teach at the same rate, at the same speed, for the same reasons. And where is our money saved? It's saved in less janitors, less secretaries, less square footage. I know that was a deal in the paper that we say we need to decrease square footage, but we're building a bigger school. That's an inaccurate fact. Of the 100,000 extra square feet, we're knocking off 40,000 of that. Correct? How much? 35,000 we're knocking off. So, the issue will come down to, for some people, will come down to taxes. Piper Jeffrey's here to have that discussion about what it's going to cost you. Estimates. Nobody knows what the mill levies will produce or what our valuations will be here in 5, 10, 15 years. They're estimates today on what we expect things to look like later. But as some of you may or may not have seen, a piece of pasture ground is going to get taxed at 35 cents an acre. Annually. 35 cents an acre annually. Okay? Pasture ground around here in Wabaunsee County is cow-calf or double stock. If you're a cow-calf producer, 7 acres. Run 1 unit. 7 acres. 7 times 35 cents, $2. Somebody want to do the math? $2.12 per cow per year. $2.12 per cow per year. Cow-calf producer on 7 acres. If you're a double stock guy, 3 acres. $1.01 per head per year. That is not going to financially bankrupt our ag producers. I'm in ag. I own cattle. I own land. I'm under that umbrella. I can afford $1 for my yearlings, and I can afford $2 for my cow-calf side to pay the taxes on this. It's only for 25 years. Only, right? Some of us won't pay it for 25 years. That's the fact. Okay? $2 and how much on crop ground? $2.12 an acre on crop ground. $2.12 if you're a soybean farmer. Soybeans are up to $9-10. 1/4 of a bushel per acre. 1/4 of a bushel. 0.25 bushels of beans pays for this bond. Okay, you're a corn farmer. 2/3 of a bushel of corn pays for this bond. This bond is not about an increase in taxes to the point where we can't afford it. Again, I own crop ground. I'm in that segment. I can afford 1/3 of a bushel. I can afford 2/3 of a bushel. But as facts coming from our Register of Deeds office today, or our county clerk's office today, if I'm an ag producer in Wabaunsee County, I'm one of the lucky ones. The amount of money we pull to pay for this bond out of ag producers is 19%. 19% of the dollars for this bond come from ag producers. Come from ag money. 19%. 7%, again, I told you at the beginning, I'm an owner, a business owner, a local business owner, so I'm going to pay business owner taxes too. 7%. 7% of this bond will get paid for by local business taxes. The homeowner, again, I'm one of them, 44%. 44% of this bond will get paid for on the backs of those who own homes. 27% of this bond gets paid for by utility companies. Railroads included. I've said it at all 3 town halls. This bond will not fail because of taxes. And I've made facts about what it costs our ag producers here tonight. This bond will not fail because of that. Most of our land around here is rented out anyways. Guess what? I'm one of them too. I rent ag land. And the guy I rent from is going to say, look, you paid X last year, cow calf, you're going to pay $5 more next year. I get it. So it didn't cost that landowner anything. And I'm happy to do it. On the backs of my cattle, I'm happy to do this. Because I know if you go around to our surrounding communities that have lost their schools, how much cheaper is it to buy a home in those locations? They're nice towns. I travel through Harveyville, Dover, Eskridge a lot. I have family that lives there. But I can buy a house in Eskridge, Harveyville, or Dover a lot cheaper than I can in Alma, Maple Hill, or Paxico. Ag land, I ran some numbers today, and it's my math, so you can argue with me. 20% cheaper. So, am I willing to take a 20% decrease in value because I'm unwilling to pay $2 a head for my cattle for 25 years? I talked to one guy today. I said, what? He has a house and 10 acres. He said, my taxes are going to go up X number. Yes, they are. We came up that it was going to cost him $7,500 for the entire life of this 25-year bond. $7,500. I said, how bad does your school district have to go down for your house and 10-acre value to drop $7,500? It'll do that every 6 months. It's easy to drop 20%. Those are real numbers. 20% off the value of your home because we were unwilling to invest in our kids' future. Again, I state, This bond will not fail because of an increase in taxes. It'll fail because of a lack of trust. It'll fail because of a lack of trust in the 4 individuals up here. Callie's been at every meeting too. She's a 5th board member, and she's out sick tonight. But this option is a 5-2 option. Is that fair? That's what it was voted, right? 4-3, but it failed. Jim voted against it because he wasn't ready to have the bond election in the summer. He was ready to have it now, correct? Okay. Just so I don't speak out of turn. This bond is supported by 5 of your board members. We want what's good for you. Because what's good for you is also good for us. Because we're taxpayers within your district. There's no agenda here. I want my kids to have as much of an opportunity to be successful as the kids at St. Mary's, Rossville, Silver Lake, Wamego, Rock Creek. I want them to have that option. We have how many students this year going to continuing education courses that are VOTEC style, continuing 6. 6 of our kids are doing that. How big of an increase is that? Say in the last 5 years, how many kids have done it on average over 5 years? Okay, so 1, maybe 2 kids do vocational style after grad studies. That's a huge increase of kids taking a different route than a 4-year college. We are an agriculture-based community. We're a rural setting. We need kids like that. We need kids in HVAC. We need kids in auto mechanics. We need kids in construction technology. It's a good thing. So, if we bring our 7th and 8th graders here to Alma to be with our high school, we get to start them in their continuing ed classes in the 7th grade. So their career and technical education courses is what they're called, correct? Okay. So wood shop, VOAG, drafting, those types of classes that are only offered at high schools because we can't afford to hire a high school teacher and a junior high teacher. We bring them here, now they have the opportunity to learn that sooner, to be a part of that environment sooner. We have here at USD 329, you have individual plans of study. How long have we had individual plans of study? 4 years. Individual plans of study tell you, okay, Justin, what do you want to do? What do you see as a career lifestyle of yours? I want to go into commercial real estate building. You need to get in a drafting class. This drafting class is available to you. AutoCAD is available to you. But they are available to other kids in our surrounding districts, but they're not available to our kids here. Because we, as taxpayers, have not made that investment yet into our district. That's what we're asking you to do today. On top of that, if we do offer those classes to our kids, we get more state funding. So there's 2 ways to fix your budget. One, you cheapen up your expenses, right? At home, you say shut the lights off. Don't turn the heat on. You can live without air conditioning for a couple of weeks. We do that. The other side is, go get a better job. Go figure out how to make more money. That's what this part is. We're going to increase our amount of dollars coming from the state for funding to offer those classes to those kids. So it's going to help pay for it. Side note, make sure you're writing down your questions, because we're going to get to that point here pretty quick. Okay? I'm going to turn over the mic to Piper Jeffrey, and he's going to go through exact details on interest rates, why that's important to discuss today, So cost of borrowing funds and why that's important, and then tax consequences. I think after that, we're going to go to HDK. They're going to talk about construction costs. They're going to talk about why construction costs may sound like they're going up today, but they'll be flat for commercial building because of labor issues. And then we'll get to some questions. So, Piper Jeffrey.
Thanks, Justin. A really good summary on taxpayer costs for individuals in property that they own. My name's Clayton Kelly. Can everyone hear me all right? It's speaking loud enough? Okay. Our firm, essentially what we do is we partner with schools throughout the state of Kansas. Whether it's schools, we even partner with counties, cities, help them with the financing of their infrastructure projects and really help them secure the most affordable financing they can get for the projects that they're doing. So for a school district and a school district project, that type of financing is through a general obligation bond. So a couple of things that I just wanted to go through are market timing is one, and then two, why is that important? What does that mean for the school district? So as of today, we had a bond issue for the city of Hutchinson in which a 20-year financing, this will be 25 years, but a 20-year financing sold for around 1.84%. So just to let you know kind of where the current market is now, that is a city versus school district, but when an investor looks at a general obligation bond, which is what this bond will be, which is what Hutchinson was, you can fairly guess that in today's current market rate, it would have received a similar rate. So that's just to give you an example of someone that we've worked with and what we've received recently. Now, how does that compare to a year ago? I would have said a year ago, if you could have got 2.75 or 2.85, that would have been a great rate. So 1.85%, as some of you may know, interest rates are at all-time lows right now, and 1% on a $24 million bond issue over 25 years, that's several $1 million of interest cost savings over the life of that bond. So that's where we're at this point in terms of the opportunity for the district. Another reason, and Justin mentioned it, just with the financing that occurred about 19 years ago, that bond is now rolling off. It will mature next September, and the state requires districts, because you have a mill levy dedicated to debt service payments, the state will require the district, once that bond matures, to lower the portion of their mill levy that is dedicated to debt service payments to drop it to zero. So right now it's at about 8.899 mils, and that'll have to drop to zero. I know there were some questions on why does the mill levy have to drop off? What's the purpose of the timing? Why is it urgent? That's a reason why the district will have to drop that to zero. It'll lower your mill levy by 8.899 mils, and that 8.899 mils, as a citizen, you don't just pay solely property taxes for the school districts. You also have your county taxes that you pay for their various spending needs that they help out with throughout the county area, as well as city. There's library taxes for some districts. And so the portion of the school district that is dedicated solely to their debt service payments will drop by 8.899 mils. That is public knowledge. And so you may have a city or a county that notices that and have the ability to increase their mill levy by that offsetting, so that your overall tax that you pay for cities, schools, counties, and other entities in the district area stays the same. So it looks like a no mill levy increase from their perspective. And then if you have to go out the next year, after dropping that to zero, your increase, instead of being 16.8 mils, 8.851 mils, which is what this current mill levy would be, would have to be about 25.75. So that's another entity within your tax-paying district, tax-paying boundary, that could capture the mill levy that the district will lose if this bond election isn't passed this year and is delayed a full year. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everyone on that question of what is the importance of the timing of the election this fall versus waiting a year. I think that you did a really good job of going through individual taxpayers. I'll just go ahead and mention homeowner amount. And on a $100,000 home, the monthly property tax increase would be $16.15. So I think that was kind of, was there anything that I had not gone over that you want me to share with everybody? Yeah. All right. Thank you.
If you have tax questions, make sure you get them wrote down so that we can answer that. So, in summary, 1% cheaper than what it was a year ago. We can borrow money at 1.85% today, roughly. And the timing of it, if we don't pass this bond, we can have a special election. It costs the district roughly $10,000 to have a special election. It costs us $0 to do it now. So a savings of $10,000 to vote here in November, which is why we decided to go ahead and do that once coronavirus hit. 1.2 on taxes that I'll leave you with, and then we're going to move to HDK. The school district is the only tax receiving entity that you get to vote about. You get to vote for this bond because we're wanting to build our facilities. You don't get to vote for your county increase in mill levy. You don't get to vote for your township increase in mill levy. You don't get to vote for your city increase in mill levy or decrease. You elect officials to those positions, and then you trust them and you hear what they have to tell you. The county's going to raise their mill levy X. The city's going to raise their mill levy X. The school district is the only one you get to vote on. I find that interesting. Maria.
Right. I'm Maria Katina with HDK Architects. And when we started working with them about their buildings and looking at the challenges that they had, we did that evaluation to see the square footage and quickly came to that conclusion that there's more that you need to maintain. Yes. Is that closer? And we also had, the district went out and had the roofing evaluation done on each of the facilities, an energy audit done on the facilities to evaluate their current conditions and what it would cost to renovate them. All of this, we came together with a plan, and we can't come back out and ask for more money. So with this plan, we do an estimate that's based off of square footage of what you need for this project and for the renovation and the additions of this project. So the plans right now are schematic in nature. It costs money to go through engineering and all of the requirements to get permitting and for the construction costs. So these are estimates right now based off of the needs that we've talked about. That's how we got to the $24.65 million. Construction costs, we estimate, are typically about 6% increase a year. This year with the coronavirus, what we've seen is that construction materials are starting to get harder to get in. A lot of things like tile that just come in overseas, typically it happens every day. Normally isn't a big deal, but because of the coronavirus, we're not able to get as many materials outside of the U.S., and we're able to get more materials inside the U.S., which we see as a good thing. The issue with construction dollars is that we're not seeing as many projects going out for bid or projects being constructed. This means that we have more contractors looking for work. This makes the labor prices go down and competitive bid pricing in your favor on this project. So the typical bid construction cost of 6% increase a year is not the same, and it's a lower percentage of what we're seeing right now.
How many school districts that you guys worked with in the past have actual set in stone physical plans made before going to a bond election?
Never.
So they never have, this is where this building is exactly going to be located, this is exactly what it's going to look like, this is exactly the color, this is exactly what you're going to do. They never do that.
We have seen school districts ask for that. It is extremely rare, and our company has never been a part of one of those plans.
It costs a lot of money to go through that, and the only way they can afford to go through that is they don't have it in their general operating budget to pay for plans like that. So they have to borrow the money from the bond. Is that accurate?
They don't live it.
So because it's so expensive to do that and the bond fails, now the money comes out of our general operating budget, we have nothing to show for it. Okay? So typically they come with ideas and create buy-in. Okay, just wanted to make sure we were not doing anything outside of the ordinary with that. Okay. So it looks like plans, it looks like schematics, it looks like guesses or estimates, or they don't have an idea of what they're trying to do. We were trying to build on a street, nobody talked to the city council. We don't know if we have a bond yet. We do know that we have plenty of land that we own and have the ability to put our own infrastructure on our own land. Would it be nice to build across Ohio Street? Yes. Are the costs associated with moving the utilities that are under the street in the bond already projected?
Yes.
Okay, so we have projected the cost that it's going to take to move the utilities should the city say, yes, it's okay to build on the street. If the city says, no, it is not okay to build on the street, are there other things that we have already done, plan B, C, D, and E, to go away from the street should that become an issue?
Yes.
Is that already in the funds that we have asked for?
Yes.
Okay, so it's already in the funds that we have asked for to come up with a plan to make sure we have a facility that works for our needs under the current bond. Do we have exact answers as to where that's going to be, how it exactly is going to look? No. But I ask you, you elected a set of individuals to your county commission. You elected a set of individuals to your city council. They make those decisions on a daily basis. Did anybody vote on redoing Wide Street? Did anybody in here vote to take that up and redo that pavement this week? Did anybody vote to build a new building for storage of our equipment at the county? Did anybody get to vote to tear that building down and put a new facility up there? Did any of you get to vote to put a big concrete wall, retaining wall, in for the county? Did any of you vote for that? No. You voted for elected officials and you trust that they are doing the right thing with your tax dollars that are going to be best for you long term. You voted every single one of us in. And you can vote us out. But you voted us in right now to put up with what we're dealing with right now. It takes a little bit of trust to get there. None of us want an obscene, obtuse building sitting here next to this beautiful facility that our last bond went through. We don't want anything that's ugly, and we don't want to diminish the city of native stone. But we know that if we get the opportunity to build one, it's not going to be out of native stone. They're too rigid. It will have native stone facing, along with brick, to blend in with what we already have. We don't want to degrade our town. I live here. I go to church here. My kids are here. My kids have friends here. I didn't just move in. My family has been here for generations and generations. Why do I want to tarnish the town that I live in and make it worse than what it was when you left it? I don't think any of us have that idea. But it takes a little trust. Are there any note cards? I did have a note that I do want to answer while you guys are turning in note cards. I may be the irresponsible cow-calf producer in the group because I use 7 acres. Some guys use 8. If you want, throw 10 at it. It's $3.50 for a cow-calf if you throw 10 at it. $3.50 a year. So, apologize if I over-abuse my grass. I'll try to be a better student. Somebody read it for you because I can't see it. So we're gonna ask the questions that are on the note cards, and then we're gonna answer those questions to the best of our ability. If there happens to be a question that is asked that we don't have an answer to, we will go back and research that, and we will post it in the newspaper, on our website, on Facebook, and everywhere. If you have your name on it, we'll actually call you, but if it's anonymous, we don't know how to get a hold of you, but we will answer it. Hopefully it'll be tonight.
Okay, these were questions related to what we were just discussing about location of the high school. So, what is the engineer's cost estimate of rerouting underground utility systems under Ohio Street? The storm sewer, sanitation sewer, gas line, main water line, overhead, or underground power lines?
Okay. So, Maria, you have a cost on there, I'm going to say roughly $1.8 million. Yes. $300 a square foot, $84,000 with the miscellaneous. Anything that is outside of that $84,000 comes out of a budget item of miscellaneous, which we have budgeted for at $1.8 million. That's the 1.8 I just said. So technically we have $1.9 million to cover costs associated with that. Fair answer? That's what we have. Whether that's what it costs or not, those are great questions. I don't know. And there will be conversations around that. If it comes up to $1 million, maybe it's not smart to spend our money that way. Maybe they have a better idea that we can get our buildings connected for cheaper. So.
All right, the next question is related to that as well. How will the City of Alma's reluctance to allow Ohio Street to be closed affect the project?
So the idea with the school board, when we started this project, was we have to have some goals in mind. If we're going to build something new, we have to have some goals in mind. The first and foremost goal was safety and security. Then it was a convenient learning environment. Then it was size to our needs. And last but not least is location of what that is. Okay? If we are not able to shut Ohio Street down and build on that street, we want part of our safety and security measure is to keep kids indoors throughout the day. Currently you have, across the street, you have K through 4 walking across the street to utilize these facilities for PE and indoor recess when the weather's bad. So they're walking across the street to come and do that. What we're trying to do is get rid of that. Okay? So there are options that have been discussed. Again, there are options. We don't have them written in stone because we haven't said go. You haven't said go. When you say go, we'll get these options done. But there's an option of tearing down the high school and making that a parking lot for people that come to sporting events and moving our shop across the road. There's the library that can be moved that is actually on Ohio Street. That was one of the schematics that got released. It already got moved to the backside close to where the daycare is. The shop was built here. There could be an archway. I think they did an archway that showed, it was big glass, but it said, Home of the Chargers, one Wabaunsee. We are Wabaunsee. And big, so when people come down Ohio Street, coming in from the town, they see that huge arch there that says that. I don't know, kind of cool. But there are ideas that have already been explored that keep us from having to build on Ohio. But one point about Ohio is it's already shut down through the school day. The city does not have access, the city residents do not have access to that street during school days already. It's already non-existent. So, all we're trying to do is further that, but we will work with any city and government. There's issues we have to work with Paxico City also. We have not sat down at their meeting either. And I told one patron, I apologize for that. As the president of the school board, I probably should have been at every city council meeting that they would let me be at, explaining where the school was at. The advice that we got was, we don't know where we're going to build it, but we know we need this many square foot. We know we need this type of facility, and this is what that costs. Let's get it approved. Then we'll go sit down with local governments and design exactly what works for them and what works for us to make best use of our dollars. That was what the recommendation was, so that's what we followed.
Okay, I think you answered that question. The next question, which was, at what point was the school board going to approach the city to find out their concerns?
So that was the answer to that. None of this happens without us. There's quotes going around about one Wabaunsee. We are one. Whether you like it or not, we're all in this together. There's no reason for Wabaunsee to go against what Alma, city of Alma, is best for them. There's no reason for the district to go against what's best for Paxico. And honestly, this bond is what's best for the town of Maple Hill. We're taking away their facility. And I covered that at their meeting. But we're taking a facility out, probably one of our nicest facilities, in a very beautiful town, and we're shutting it down. How is that better for their town? Because we have a better, more opportunistic learning environment for their kids. That's better for their town. Next.
What happens if it is unfeasible or impossible to move underground utilities?
So I think I answered that a little bit. If it's unfeasible and does not make financial sense to move the utilities that are under Ohio Street, we'll move the building on the other side. The worst case scenario that we covered is the kids to come to the gym facilities would have to walk outside. We don't like that. And we hope to explore other options for that, like the bridge going across. So yes, it has been explored. We've already looked at it. There are plans to make that work should it be unfeasible.
Okay, the next question is, if we have 100,000 extra square footage, why are we only reducing about 35,000 square feet?
It's a good question. So of the 100,000 square feet extra that we have, and we are reducing that by 35,000, okay? So some of that is we wanted a school that would house future growth. We didn't want to go down to the bare minimum, even though that's what the other districts did for theirs. For what they chose to do 10, 15 years ago when they built theirs, they did go down to some of the bare minimums. And some of those districts today, if you go to St. Mary's, Rossville, those school districts are now adding on to their facilities because of growth, and we don't want to have to do that. We don't want to come back and spend dollars there. We would like to spend them elsewhere within our district. But why not reduce, or why aren't we reducing 100% of it? Some of that is like it's unusable space. Currently that we're not even in, so it's our modulars that aren't being used. That is another downfall to this bond, but we have addressed it, is losing our auditorium. We are not taking the approach with square footage that it is specific use square footage. It is more multi-use square footage. So there will be a stage and there will be a performing arts portion included into the bond, but it'll be more in a environment that can be used every day by kids versus the only time we use our auditorium is during school lectures and plays and stuff like that. So it's not used on a daily basis by our students. So we're not going to drop it all off because we don't want to come back 10 years from now and need to borrow more money from you to add on to that square footage.
I'll just add on to that a bit. The efficiency of being able to reduce the whole 100,000 would be if we built all new. Because we're reusing as much of the existing facilities that we can, we cannot overcome or achieve all of that inefficiency back. And it'll be more flexible space that we're building new.
Okay. The next question says maintenance, question mark, program for maintenance, and then recent projects. Okay, so maintenance seems to be an ongoing topic from time to time here and at other districts, because as I came on the board 3 years ago, I start looking when I go to other districts. So I start asking, what's your guys' maintenance plan? What's your custodial program? And that everybody has this issue, so we're no different than any other school district. What I've said at past town halls about our maintenance program, we have 5 buildings in 3 towns and 1 maintenance director. Inevitably, that individual is in Maple Hill when somebody needs him in Alma. Inevitably, he is at Paxico when somebody needs him in Maple Hill. Lots of other districts have multiple individuals in that area. We don't. And we're not going to have. Our approach was to change our custodial. They take some responsibility away to allow them to focus on what's important. We took the custodial staffing away from our maintenance director and put somebody else in charge of that. And now they are in charge of maintenance staffing. Okay? We are still operating buildings that are 80 and 90 years old. Can you walk with me a minute and say that there are a lot more maintenance needs on a building that's 80 years old than on a building that's 8? So, not only are we understaffed in that area for the director portion of that, but we have aging facilities that cause the need for more. However, we've been able to keep them going for 80 years. And 90 over in Paxico. So, yes, are there areas in our maintenance department that can be improved? My wife would say that about me. There's areas at home that I can improve. I'm sure that everybody here has opportunities to improve. If we set the expectation and they meet it, is that a bad thing? If the expectations aren't set and they don't meet our expectations, is that a bad thing? Who failed? We failed. If we don't set the expectations, we failed. The expectations from our board to Brad have been exponentially expressed as important. We have seen major changes in the maintenance area in the last 3 years. Major changes. You got to look for them, though. You got to look for them to find them. The trees up the football field have been cleared out. That entire hillside has been cleaned up. The bleachers have been painted. The trees trimmed at Paxico. Nobody's going to argue what's been going on in Maple Hill. Being intern at Maple Hill has been a godsend to that place. But people age and they retire, so replacing that's important. That's why we take the custodial staffing off of our maintenance crew so that we can keep that as a high importance. But look around you. You're in a building that's 20 years old. Point out a flaw. Point out what's dirty. Communicate that. If you communicate that in a good way to those that are in charge, they will take heed and they will fix it. Our leadership team cannot be in every spot all the time. But you can notice and you can bring it up. We appreciate any feedback that you may have there. But we are dealing with old buildings and somehow we've kept them operational, but we're out of time and money. Okay.
All right.
The next question is, have you considered the impact of tax increases on small businesses?
Sure. So the tax increase on small business per $50,000 is $17.55 a month for every $50,000 of business tax assessed value, correct? $17 a month, okay. So let's take that for the city of Alma. What are the increase in revenue options for junior high sports moving from Paxico to Alma? So currently all junior high basketball program is held, all the games and practices are held in Paxico. Those will move to Alma. There'll be more kids here. There's more parents coming to pick up kids. They leave after school. They go downtown. They buy a few sodas at Stop and Shop. They stop and eat lunch, or they stop and eat supper at Gambino's or the Mexican restaurant. Out of town people come in for the basketball games. They drive downtown. They fill up with fuel. They stop at the liquor store. They stop and eat. They see the antique stores. They come back on Saturday to view the antique store. They eat here then. What are the tax and the income opportunities that we can have for our small businesses by this pond? It's not a ramification. This is an investment in your business. Voting for this invests money in your town and in your business. What's it do for the companies that provide plumbing and HVAC repair work? Well, we have several of those in town. What are the opportunities for those businesses? The opportunities at Paxico? What are the opportunities for people to move into their city with a K-6 there? What are the opportunities? There's more, since there's only 5, 6, and 7, and 8 over there right now, we're going to go pre-K through 6. There's more music programs. There's more field days. There's parents coming into town, driving through. They have less infrastructure to handle the large sporting events there, which is again why we say we wanted to move our junior high to Alma, because our gym is not as adequate as we have here for that. So that's why we move them this way. But what are the opportunities for Alma? They're huge. For $17 a month, you're going to tell me you're going to bring entire sporting programs to my town, and I'm a small business that operates on people showing up for me? Or you're going to tell me that I have the opportunity to bid on plumbing and heating and stuff? I'm going to say for $17 a month, I'm going to take that risk. Some may not, and this is a free country. I'm here to state facts. The facts are, it takes $17 to invest in it. I don't think that's a ramification. I think that's an investment in your future.
What about the population decreases in the towns and the schools?
Okay. So, population decrease in schools. Because that's another way we can increase our income, right? How do we fix your budget? You decrease expenses or you increase income? It's roughly $8,500 per student for us. So we increase 100 students or decrease 100 students. That's a huge stress on our budget or opportunity. We did do a stress analysis on our budget in case making this transition does lose some kids. Mainly, to be all honest, mainly from the Maple Hill area. If we lose kids from that area because we're moving out of their town, we did a stress analysis on our budget. But we also went around and we called other school districts that have done this. St. Mary's, Onega, Linden, Mission Valley, and said, what'd you guys see? What'd you experience when you went through shutdowns? When you consolidated and moved out of other people's towns, did you see a drastic decrease in enrollment? By far and away. A lot of people said they would. They showed up for enrollment. So we hope that we have a facility and an environment that says, come to school here, even though you got to drive 5-10 miles to get to it, come visit us. We have social and emotional support above and beyond other school districts around us through the Leader in Me program that focuses on social and emotional development. We've applied for grants that give us a full-time school counselor available for all students, not just students on an IEP. And as an employer that hires and fires on a daily basis, I'm sorry if there's any math teachers in here, but I can teach them to run a calculator. I can't teach them to show up on time. I can't teach them how to respect themselves as well as others. I can't teach them how to handle their mental stresses. I don't have time to teach them how to set goals. They need to have those things prepared when they get here. When they come to work, they need to be able to set a goal and follow it through to the end. I'll help them with the tools to get there, but I don't have time to help them set the goal. We are teaching our kindergartners to set goals. That's stuff that is awesome for our district. We are hoping to increase with putting facilities and the shiny face to everything we have going on behind the scenes. We're hoping to close the gap to some of our local schools, but we haven't seen a huge enrollment decrease. One of the deals in the paper was said the class of 78 had 51 students and no one else has come close. When I was in high school, there was 48. I graduated in 01. So we had 3 less kids. That's coming pretty darn close. Again, that is a statement that was made without researching the facts. Enrollment this year versus last year. One snapshot. 7 kids, 7.5 calling 8. We had a huge graduating class last year. So, we had 3 more come in the last. Gotcha. So enrollment in our school has been flat for the last 15 years. Up and down. Sometimes up, sometimes down. Okay? Next.
Okay, what is the plan for the future in view of the pandemic?
I don't know what the plan is.
So what is the plan for the pandemic? Well, I will cover some of the capital costs that we have put into allowing us to be one of the very first schools in the area to come back to in-person classes, and I'm very proud of that. Our leadership put us back to school sooner than any other district in our area. As you guys walked in, if you came in through these doors over here, you came through the thermal imaging camera. Okay, in a millisecond, it took your temperature, and then it placed you on a screen and said your temperature was X. There are 4 of them throughout our district. 5 of them. 5 of them throughout our district. They were how much per piece? $2,200 a piece. $22,000. That money came through grants that we applied for and got approved for, and they are movable. If you tell us that we're going to build a new school, that investment gets to go with us wherever we move our facilities to. $200,000 worth of supplies, masks, disinfectants, cleaning supplies, electrostatic sprayers that we spray the rooms down, that kills it. Part of our energy audit, our plasma air circulation, air handlers. The plasma air handlers circulate the air 10x times of a regular air circulator, and when it passes through the plasma, it kills the virus dead, 99.9%. And so that is also in the bond, but it's also part of our energy audit that we're going through that has been highly recommended. So those are things that we're looking at investing in to help with the pandemic.
If a bond does not pass, do we run the risk of condemning or failure of a high school structure?
The board has not asked somebody to look into our facility to the point of condemning it. So I'm not, HK, you want to talk about that? I mean, we haven't actually even looked at that, so. Right. So the building is not in a condemned state. What it is too expensive for our small budget to repair and to maintain. That's the issue. And it happens to sit on our facility. If it sat away, we would love for somebody to come in and fix that building up and invest their own financial benefit in it and do something different with it. The problem is it sits right next door to our new facilities that we put in. So it is not to the point of condemnation, but if we don't pass a bond, can I touch on that a little bit? Okay, so that's one of the questions. If we don't pass a bond, it is important for you to know, we will not continue operating the way we are operating today. The school district cannot afford it, and we can't borrow any more money from our taxpayers, so we will not operate this way. We have already shown proof to that in fixing next year's budget by deciding to shut the middle school. We haven't decided what that's going to look like. We don't know what a post-bond failure USD 329 looks like. But we'll have to sit down and look at every one of our facilities and say which ones are our best facilities, which ones are our least expensive to maintain, and how can we wrap our budget around operating in those facilities. But it's going to come down to, possibly losing opportunities for our kids. Some extracurricular classes. Comes down to people losing their jobs. Those types of things. Decisions that I didn't hire onto the board to make, but I'll stick around and make them if I have to. They won't be fun decisions. We would rather you make this decision for us.
Okay, so
Why shouldn't we spend more money on the Stone High School versus a new building?
It was our approach that it was going to cost a minimum of $11 million to fix the high school, to make it appropriate to today's standards. The high school, once we're done with it, will not look the way it looks today. And that is important to understand. To have an acceptable building for state fire marshal, if you're going to spend the money on it, or fire escapes on each side of the building for every floor. Just the outside aesthetics is what we're talking about. It's a beautiful building. We've ruined it by putting fire escapes down the outside of the building for every floor. Every side, every floor. Entrances, the steps, the fact that the chimney is pulling away from the building. Those are areas that take a lot of dollars that could be invested in an $8 million new one. And then you reset the clock. There's no reason why a new building structure shouldn't last 80 years like the old one did. We don't know that. I'm not going to predict 80 years down the road, but next.
Let's see. How did you decide on this one plan?
So I covered that a little bit earlier on option 11. We had the 21 people come together. They chose a K through 6 in Paxico and a 7 through 12 in Alma. The only thing the board changed when it did come to us was instead of fixing some old facilities, we tore down and started new because we felt like what they were asking us to do, the building committee, was do a bond, and then 20 years from now, you're going to need another one to fix the buildings again. And we just came off of a 20-year bond, and we didn't feel like it was appropriate to ask our tax-paying citizens to have a bond for 60 years. So that's where we came up with, let's spend more money now, fix the issues now, and get out of it. 25 years.
Can you change the plan K through 6 in Paxico and 7 through 12 in Alma after the bond passes?
No. We cannot change what we said we were going to do once it hits the ballot. Not once it passes. It's already on the ballot. We can't change it now, let alone after it passes. So, I don't think I need to go any deeper there. No, we cannot change it.
You already talked about this a little bit ago, but if this or any other subsequent bond does not pass before September 2021, when the current bond expires, what options does the board have to meet your current budget challenges? You have very little savings left, and the challenge to maintain 5 buildings still remains. What's the worst case scenario?
Well, the worst case scenario is shutting down more buildings, forcing consolidation of students into aged and expired facilities that do not have the environment to provide long-term opportunities for our kids. There's a reason we went away from one-room schoolhouses. Worst case scenario, I don't know. We cannot afford the worst case scenario as tax-paying citizens within our district. If you lose your district, this isn't a scare tactic. I'm not going there. I'm just telling you. If you're asking for a worst case scenario, what if you lose your district here? It would be easy for our district to send part of it to Alta Vista, Council Grove, part of it to Mission Valley, part of it to St. Mary's, part of it to Omega. There's great surrounding school districts. What happens to Wabaunsee County, USD 329 district if we don't have a district here? You ask for worst case scenario, you tell me what are the opportunities for our small businesses in Alma, Paxico, and Maple Hill if there isn't a school district here? School districts spend a lot of money locally. In fact, it's been brought up at every single meeting that we have decided and voted on a contract. We have made sure we have local options first, and we've chosen to spend more money to go locally. We got to be fiscally responsible there, but we'll spend more money locally than to go outside of that. What happens if we're not one of those people in town? Mission Valley versus us, how much propane difference? So their entire K through 12, 20,000 gallons. We spent 20,000 gallons at Paxico, Maple Hill. We didn't, that doesn't include here because we're obviously on natural gas here. So worst case scenario, you guys round out. Best case scenario is that we build a K-12 in Paxico and a K-6 and a 7 through 12 here, and we don't have to worry about worst case scenario. Again, I didn't sign on to tell people they don't have a job and to tell kids they don't have the opportunity to do the things that you can in the surrounding schools. So I get it if you leave.
With more kids at the high school, what are the plans for sports being played and for gyms, the weight room, and wrestling?
So if you guys have been following along a little bit, Coach Eck Coach Eck is our high school PE and weights coach. Okay, Coach Eck actually got recognized for Wabaunsee having one of the nicest and well-equipped weight rooms in eastern Kansas. We don't compete probably with Johnson County and some of those that way, but very nice and way nicer than a lot of other rural schools. We have the room in that area to grow. We have this beautiful facility here, and we have the nice gym that is old, but you guys remodeled it 20 years ago. So there's other school districts that have the same scenario with less gym space than what we do. We have the ability to come through and split this building and make these basketball goals come down and have a full court this way, down there this way, and obviously the main ones go this way, and we have a full court up there. There are other schools that say, hey, your junior high is going to practice in the morning. But we wouldn't have to, but that's going to be up to our athletic director and our head coaches of those programs. How do you want to manage that? You've got the ability for 3 gyms here, 1, 2, 3, if you like it that way. If you don't, change your practice schedule. There's other districts with less than what we have. We still have the gym at Paxico. So 4 within a district, 3 within one town. And there's other school districts that only have 2, and they're managing with the same number of kids. Yeah, wrestling is part of the sports program. If you look at our plan, the annex, the cafeteria, multi-purpose room is kept, and that is going to be made into a wrestling room, a wrestling facility. Currently they're on the bus barn, but if you guys vote this in, that gets torn down. So that's where that facility would move. And I believe that's the only sporting programs within this month, correct? That was asked the last one. Is there anything for the football field? The answer is no. The idea is that do we have needs up there? Yes. But we would like to approach those needs with cash savings that this program is going to allow us, and we'll build it out of cash. That's the idea. Anything else? Are there any questions from the group? Brad?
If we get way, the model is 2.5%, we're coming in at positive 1.8. The cost was 24 million in construction costs, and they come in lower. What happens within that extra money?
Okay, so that's a great point. The question was, and that was also brought up in the paper, what happens to the extra money? Did you just build in fluff? Well, the answer is no, we didn't build in fluff, but when we started this 2 years ago, interest rates were higher than what they are today, and who knows about building prices, right? Maria said costs on materials may be going up, but the price of labor may be going down, be a wash. What happens to the extra money? Maybe we don't decide to move the utilities under the street at $1 million if that's what it costs. What goes on with the extra money? There's several options. It has to be spent on either repayment of debt or student learning facility, right? And that number's already set. Could we have changed the bond price knowing that interest rates were 1% lower before we went to the ballot? Could we have changed the price of the bond? No. Because interest rates are already figured in there, right? But if it was 1%, so last year, if we hadn't already printed a $24.65 million and now we know it's 1% less, the repayment of that bond and interest is cheaper. Couldn't we have lowered the price of our bond to account for the savings and interest? Right. That's my point. Okay, so if we hadn't already submitted a $24.65 million bond to the state a long time ago, we could have adjusted our number down. The problem is that our bond request was already submitted at the 24.65, expecting that's what interest rates and building costs are going to be. We cannot go above the 24.65, and it was already a posted number, so we couldn't change it. What we can do is use it for repayment of debt, and we also can use it for additional student learning facilities, which may be something that someone has brought up as some dressing rooms and halftime facility usage up at the football field. Those are things that we could spend the money on. Yes, it is, in that sense, a blank check up to a maximum of $24.65 million, but you have elected us and you trusted us this far. We're not going to buy a Lamborghini. We can't. It has to be used on a facility.
Yeah, and another part of that, the language and the projects that it can be used on are detailed out in the ballot question. So the ballot question that you'll see when you go vote, it has wording of what it can be used for. And some of the wording is a little general, that will essentially allow for district if you have another project that you're looking at, but it's not general to the point of you can just go use it for whatever. It has to be within the scope that's on the ballot. So what you see on the question will be what if there is excess funds, what those can be used for.
Okay? I have no idea what time it is. 7:45. Okay? Clock doesn't work. Are there any more questions? We really appreciate everybody coming out. All of our contact information is on the website. Also is listed in the paper. You can also call the school and get our contact information. This has been 2.5 years of intense planning, and if you've never gone through a project like this, I tell you, get involved in something that allows you to go through a project like this because it's an eye-opener. It's not as easy as what it looks like from the outside, and hey, I've been there. I've been that guy saying, man, why are they doing that? That doesn't make any sense. Get involved. We're not hiding anything. It's important for our kids. Anything else, you guys? Okay. So again, it is an actual board meeting, so we do need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming out. Be safe going home.